Halloween Ends is sure to join the ranks of such beloved horror sequels as Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, horror sequels that took risks and divided audiences, to say the least. Needless to say, sometimes when a horror sequel takes a risk, it can still turn out pretty decent. Halloween 3 has developed a decent cult following over the years. However, in the case of Halloween Ends, taking a risk isn't always a good thing. In fact, Halloween Ends is very misguided, confused, and terrible. So yes, guys, welcome to yet another episode of Around the Clock Frights. My name is Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the hotly anticipated sequel, Halloween Ends. At least, it used to be one of my most anticipated sequels of the year. Now I feel like I'm drowning in a pool of my own tears because this film was very, very bad. And it does take some bold risks, but ultimately it fails to deliver a satisfactory conclusion to this new trilogy. The trilogy that began with 2018's Halloween.
Come and get me, motherfucker.
No! So I'm definitely going to get into some spoilers here, but real quick, I want to talk to you guys about my movie-going experience watching Halloween Ends. It was honestly not very pleasant. It was a pretty crazy experience, needless to say. I saw it at an AMC theater, and it was a packed house full of hardcore Halloween fans. The audience did not like this movie. In fact, my screening was full of jeers and sneers, and there's a lot of snickering, a lot of laughter during scenes that were supposed to be serious but ended up being unintentionally hilarious, and there was actually a group of drunk kids sitting a couple rows behind me, and when the theater ended, I rushed out of the auditorium to go use the bathroom, and these kids ran into the bathroom, and they were so mad at this movie that they actually broke the bathroom doors, like the stall doors. They slammed them shut so hard that the bolts flew off, and they actually caused public damage, all because of Halloween Ends. So, damn, Michael Myers, you didn't cause any damage in the... Michael Myers, even though you're fictional, you still caused some damage in the real world, my friend. So, a big problem with this movie is the marketing, because, it was advertised as the big, epic, final showdown between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. This is a showdown decades in the making. Hey, we already got that with 2018's Halloween. 2018 had a very satisfying showdown between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, but Blumhouse decided to poop out 2 more sequels, and here we are with Halloween Ends. And honestly, what we get is a lame, condensed version of the sequence in Halloween H2O. The showdown between Laurie and Michael in Halloween H2O was actually much more exciting and much more visceral than the showdown in this movie, because the showdown in this movie was shown in the freaking trailers. I mean, in the trailers, you'll pretty much see the ending to this movie. There are multiple shots, from the ending of this movie. Shots of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode going at it, and engaging in hand-to-hand combat. He throws her around a kitchen, which, by the way, that's pretty much where the final fight takes place, is inside this dark kitchen, because that's the setting for an epic showdown between 2 immortal horror characters who we've grown to love over the decades. Look, a lot of Halloween fans are going to despise this movie simply because Michael Myers isn't in it very much. He's in it for a grand total of maybe 5 minutes, and I'd be on board with, this film's risky creative choices if it had a good script to back it up, but it doesn't. Honestly, this is a boring slog that spends way too much time on characters we simply don't care about, with some truly lame, pedestrian kills to boot. For the majority of this movie, we follow this young man who is set up to be Haddonfield's next serial killer, leaving Michael Myers almost completely out of the picture, but we'll get into, Michael Myers later, because he does eventually show up, and it just gets even more stupid from that point on, and there are just so many things about this screenplay that do not make sense. Just certain choices are made that are utterly baffling. So, look, this is the conclusion to a trilogy. A trilogy is supposed to have a complete narrative arc. This film felt like it had barely any interest in being a Halloween sequel. certainly not a conclusion to the previous two films, you know, Halloween and Halloween Kills. And just for most of the movie, you know, people will be asking themselves, why are we spending so much time with this new character, a character who we have never seen before, that suddenly this film thinks is so important to the overall narrative arc of this trilogy? Why are we spending so much time with him? And, oh, the plot of this movie. Okay, so here we go. So, again, there's going to be some mild spoilers. So, it has been about 4 years since the events in Halloween Kills. You know, Judy Greer was butchered at the end of that movie. Laurie Strode and her granddaughter Allison have both moved on, supposedly. You know, Laurie Strode is currently writing a book about the events that took place in Haddonfield in years prior. And at the beginning of this movie, oh my god, that's when we meet this new character, this young man who is babysitting this kid. And, you know, David Gordon Green films a sequence as if something truly terrifying is about to happen. You know, we're just waiting for Michael Myers to pop out of the closet or, you know, another bedroom. But what ends up happening is unintentionally hilarious, because let's just say a little kid dies at the beginning of this movie, and it resulted in some riotous laughter. The way it was filmed, the way it was edited, the way that it was paced, it was just hysterical. And David Gordon Green is known for comedies. Well, this was supposed to be serious. This film takes itself so seriously. And what happens is that Laurie's granddaughter, you know, she sympathizes with this young man because this young man is deemed as this child killer. He's bullied by some high school students straight out of like a 50s movie. Like, they drive around in this open like convertible or whatever, and they look like your stereotypical high school bullies, and they're picking on this man who is like in his 20s. Like, what is going on in this movie? So it then becomes kind of a remake of Christine. You know, this young man, he becomes more and more psychotic. He hooks up with Laurie's granddaughter because she sympathizes with him, because, you know, she's a survivor of Michael Myers and he's an outcast. So I don't know, I guess she has somewhat of an understanding of what he's going through. It's a little bit confusing. Anyway, it turns into somewhat of a love story, and Michael Myers does eventually enter the picture. He spends most of the movie down below in this disgusting sewer, which raises some questions like, how the hell was he able to survive for so long? And he looks weird. Like, Michael Myers looks weird in this movie. Like, he looks bulky, he looks just out of shape, he looks so sluggish, which I guess might be the point. So what ends up happening is that there were some really stupid things that happened in this movie. There are some unexplained supernatural elements. When this new character first finds Michael Myers in the sewer, I guess Michael Myers can just sense that this kid has done some really terrible things. Like, he literally has visions of some of the terrible things this kid has done. I mean, yeah, people will argue that Michael Myers himself is supernatural. You know, he is supposedly immortal, you know, he can't die. This is just a new level of stupid. Like, does Michael Myers just possess these psychic powers? Like, you guys are reminding me of terrible sequels like The Curse of Michael Myers and Halloween Resurrection.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Which you really should not be doing, because those sequels were god-awful. And this movie disrespects certain characters, like Michael Myers. So he basically takes on this young boy as like his pupil. He's pretty much, Michael Myers is Batman in this movie, and this young twerp is essentially his Robin. Which is so stupid, because there are moments where this young twerp is asking Michael to teach him how to kill. You take a freaking knife and you stab people with it. What is there to learn? There's nothing to learn about being a killer, you freaking moron. God, the writing in this is just so contrived and so terrible. And, you know, even the granddaughter character, Allison, you know, she was a pretty strong character in Halloween and Halloween Kills. Here, she spends most of the time fawning after this dipshit who we don't give a shit about, or, you know, she's someone for Laurie to worry about. She doesn't really feel like a three-dimensional character in this movie. She feels like a prop for other characters to worry about, and it's just such a disgrace. And there were just some contrived as hell plot points. Like I mentioned earlier, the high school bullies, you know, Michael sparing this dude because I guess he can sense how evil he will become. Like there were multiple scenes where Michael's young prodigy is killing people, and Michael just kind of watches, or he kills with him, and Michael wouldn't do that. There is no way that Michael would let anyone live. Anyone who crosses his path, they're dead. They're dead meat. What were they thinking? Do you see why I'm upset, guys? Because, like I mentioned earlier, this film has barely any interest in being a Halloween sequel. In fact, by the end, it feels like it's talking down to the audience. Like, none of this stuff really matters. Like, the stuff that you're excited for, it doesn't matter. It's time to move on. Like, we don't want you to enjoy a Halloween movie. It's time to move on with your life and forget about these films. That's the vibe that I got from Halloween Ends. It didn't exist to entertain. It existed to pander and lecture.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
Also, there was some really out of nowhere commentary on, like, I guess the pandemic. Like, there's some, at times people were talking about, at times characters will talk about, their past trauma and how, they've been trying to move on from it. And this is a time for Haddonfield to heal and, move on and better itself and become a strong community again. I also read in an article that David Gordon Green rewrote this film during the pandemic, so yeah, he was probably feeling, the current state of the world, and he wanted to add in some additional commentary. But this film doesn't do a good job developing it, because you essentially have two themes. The fact that Haddonfield breeds evil. The residents are responsible for this new young psychopath. Okay, that's kind of an interesting idea. But there's also this theme of, moving on past your trauma and, bettering yourself. So you have two very conflicting ideas just coming together, and they don't mesh well, and it's ends up in a very, very unfocused sequel. I am getting angry here, guys, because I am angry. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I thoroughly disliked it, and while watching it, I kind of wish that Michael Myers would put an end to my suffering, if I can be completely honest, because this film was just, it was just a disappointment. And another problem, the Corey character is such a cookie-cutter psychopath. He has controlling, abusive parents. He might as well be straight out of a Rob Zombie movie. He's such a typical psychopath. He has a rough childhood. He's an outcast. Okay, Hollywood, would you stop with the freaking glasses cliche? A character becomes stronger and more attractive once they take off their glasses. Can you please just stop with that cliche? Can you just stop? You did it in shit like Wonder Woman 1984, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This doesn't do much. Me taking off my glasses, okay? This new character, played by Rohan Campbell, he will be disliked by most Halloween fans for simply being a placeholder for the real threat, which has always been Michael Myers. Guys, there are some somewhat interesting ideas in this movie. Like the idea that Haddonfield, creates these monsters, that the community is responsible for, I guess, Michael Myers and this new serial killer, even though that's not what the original movie was all about. The reason Michael Myers was so scary in the original film was because he was so random. Haddonfield was portrayed as this very average, normal community. So when this new evil rises and, lays waste to this unfortunate community, it's shocking because it made you feel as if this could happen anywhere in the world. Any street corner, any average suburban neighborhood, a character like Michael Myers could exist. Here, Haddonfield looks disgusting, it looks decrepit, it looks run down. So of course, it would result in some citizens becoming serial killers. I mean, come on. And if you want to know if Halloween truly does end in this movie, I won't entirely spoil what happens, but let's just say yes, Halloween does in fact end in this movie. They do give us a definitive answer, as to whether or not Michael Myers is still alive. So at least there's that. And Jamie Lee Curtis is also wonderful in this movie. She gives it her all. She puts so much emotion into all of these sequences. She is tremendous in this movie, but she deserved a better send-off, especially since she's been playing this character for essentially 40-some years, which is highly impressive. Oh, and by the way, there's a moment in the trailer. There's a moment in the trailer where, it's a bit of a bait and switch. You see Michael slowly walking down this hallway towards this open doorway, and it turns out that Laurie is just waiting for him with a gun. That scene, admittedly, got a big applause in the movie because it's a bait and switch. Laurie is about to do something, and you start to worry for her. You start to worry about her for a second, but then it turns out to be a trap. So that scene was undeniably epic and badass, and it just shows how strong of a character Laurie Strode is. It was a wonderful moment for Jamie Lee Curtis. She's such a wonderful woman. I'm so glad she's had such a long and prosperous career. Anyway, guys, Halloween Ends. My recommendation, go see Terrifier 2 instead. Terrifier 2, while grisly, at least delivered. It didn't pretend to be some pretentious, real-world commentary. Go see Terrifier 2. Halloween Ends. It's gonna anger most people. I've stated my reasons for not liking it. If you do like it, I won't be angry at you. I won't blame you for anything. I'm sure you have your reasons, and while this film does take some risks, and some people might really appreciate that, which is completely fine, these are just my opinions. I thought Halloween Ends was a miserable experience. Such a boring, torturous slog. Anyway, as you can probably tell, I'm pretty upset, but it's time to cool off because Halloween is just around the corner, guys. Let's get out there and celebrate. Go to some haunted houses, go out to parties, just have fun. This is the season for us horror fans. This is our time to shine. So, go to the movie theater, see a scary movie. We've gotten some really good horror movies this year. 2022 has been pretty good. We've been eating good, us horror fans in 2022. So, get out there and have some fun. I would love to know what you thought of Halloween Ends. Did it disappoint you? Did it make you as upset as I am? Please leave your thoughts down below in the comments. And as always, if you liked this, please subscribe to my channel, Round the Clock Frights. Oh, and one more quick thing, guys. So, I mentioned Terrifier 2 earlier. I am actually going to be interviewing one of the actors from that movie. That's going to be done here in a couple of weeks. I'm very excited about that. I've spoken to this person over Instagram, and they are very, very friendly. And I can't wait to interview them. It's going to be a recorded Zoom meeting. I will definitely be posting that interview on this YouTube channel. I'm very excited. Anyway, guys, enjoy the Halloween season. Have a great night. Stay scary, but also stay safe. Take care, boys and ghouls. Bye-bye. I'm going to play with my Michael. I'm going to play with my Mikey, my little Mikey. His little knife. He's so cute. I'm a grown man.